All right, everyone, welcome. I'm Morris Grubbs, Assistant Dean in the grad school, and we have here with us Chad Gilpin, and many of you know him through maybe being a TA or some communications, some outreach, some email or something. So thank you for joining us today. This will last about an hour. The plan is to talk for about 20 minutes just on some basic principles of presenting research, and we're mainly talking about to general audiences, something that is not as common in graduate school as it really needs to be. So we'll spend about 20 minutes on those principles. We'll move on to talking about graphic support for research, just what kinds of images might be most effective, and also um, spending a little bit of time on the slide for the 3-minute thesis, the competition that we offer here at UK. So we are going to talk about that competition. We're headed that way. It's in November, and the preliminary deadline's coming up pretty soon. So we'll give you all that information. So next slide, please. So part of the reason you're probably here is because you're at least somewhat aware that because you are in grad school and because you're a scholar, because you're an expert in your field, you do have a certain degree of at least part of a curse, let's say. It's the curse of knowledge, we often call it. And it occurs when we're uh, in situations where we're trying to explain our research and we take for granted that our audience tends to know what we know. So it's difficult to overcome this. We have to work at it. It's not something that's natural. So it's difficult for us to imagine what it's like not to know what we know about our discipline, about our research. So part of this presentation is going to help you at least be aware of this struggle and to have some techniques to draw on to help you overcome it. Next slide. So first of all, when you're speaking with novice audiences, and again, you may not do this very much at all while you're in grad school. You probably won't do it when you go to conferences unless it's an interdisciplinary conference, perhaps. But it's a critical skill, certainly, that you'll use after graduate school. And depending on your career, it's absolutely essential. But in working toward presenting research to novice audiences, the first thing you have to realize is, yes, the research matters to me, and I know why it matters, but how do I communicate that? So you have to build a case for why the research matters to the audience. So you have to know a little bit about the audience. If it's a general audience, really it's just the fact that they're human beings and that maybe they're citizens. They want to be informed. Um, and so there's a number of ways you can go about thinking about building that case. Next slide. So you're used to using your academic language. It can be stifling and it can turn an audience off. They can tune out pretty easily. So you need to identify the language of the academic discipline that you're in and try to avoid using those words and those terms that might not be as accessible to general audiences. So we know you can't get over, you can't totally eliminate using that language, but you can minimize it at least. And then it's important to use narrative cues, and these are, you know, this is, it's just little clues like where I'm headed in telling the story of my research, and how am I getting from one point to the next. So these are transitional kinds of words that help the audience hang their information on a sort of a scaffold, so they can make sense and keep track of what you're saying and what direction you're taking. And then it's critical that you try to be as visually appealing in your descriptions of your research as you can. So it's important to avoid being too general and too abstract, and to favor being very concrete and detailed, to just to help your audience visualize and imagine what it is you're describing. Next slide. And then it's important to be conversational and expressive in an environment where you are presenting to a general audience. They want eye contact. They want you to slow down occasionally. They want everything that I've said previously here. They're looking for the cues, so they'll know what's important and what's less important, um, what they should remember going forward in your story and so forth. So it's important that you put them at ease, and to do that, you can be conversational as you're describing your research. So what we're talking about here is finding and distilling your research story. It's a pretty critical skill as you're moving from being a graduate student into being a professional in a career. So the next several slides are going to focus on how do you go about effectively distilling your research into a story. So first of all, distilling does not mean dumbing down. That's one of the criticisms that you often hear about an event like the 3-minute thesis. That it is asking you to condense, but I would avoid thinking about it as a dumbing down, because really what you're being asked to do when you're presenting to a public audience is to focus on the meaning of your research and the meaning of your findings, and to deprioritize in what you're describing, to deprioritize the process. Because in graduate school, you are entrenched very deeply in the process, and it's something that you want to talk about. You live in that process, so it's hard for you not to talk about it. It's hard for you to pull yourself out of that enough to leave it behind a little bit and actually talk about the importance of what it is you have found and what are the implications of it all and so forth. So don't think of it as dumbing down, but think of it as focusing on the meaning, less on the process. Next slide. So what this is asking you to do is to carefully craft and deliver your story. In oral presentation, a good story is easy for you to remember and to tell. So that's that's why for you it's important that you craft a story and that you have a story, is because it's easy to keep in your head, and it's sequenced in such a way that you don't have to do a lot of memorization. It becomes clear to you as a narrative, and it's easy for you then to share with whoever it is you're talking with. Equally important, next line on there, a good story is also easy for your audience to follow and recall. So that's also what's critical. You're telling the story not just for yourself as a way to remember and convey your research, but also as a way to create a scaffolding for your audience to follow and to remember what it is, the main points of what it is you've said. Next slide. So it's always good in a story, of course, to have a beginning, middle, and an ending. You have the next lines, Chad, you can go through those. First of all, find your hook. That is to say, find a way to draw the reader in and to appeal to something that you have in common with the audience. Um, you're engaging your listener in the story right away when you're starting to talk, and then that allows you to gradually introduce complexity. The best sequence that you can follow there is go from hook to complexity. And then, as I said earlier, avoid the abstract. Use plenty of examples, anecdotes, analogies, whatever it is that'll help you appeal to the senses. And when I say senses, I especially mean sight and being able to visualize what it is you're describing. With any good story, suspense of some kind is appreciated by the listener. And so every good research story has some suspense behind it. Maybe certain parts of it were hidden, and you had to work in a number of different ways to try to uncover the the actors in that drama that you're trying to unfold for the audience. So whatever it is that you're trying to tell will have some sort of tension because it took several attempts for you to find out which way to pursue your research, or you had some failed attempts occasionally, something along those lines, or something surprising that occurred as you were moving through the process. Uh, maybe there was something extremely difficult that you overcame, and so forth. And then at the end of the story that you're telling, return to the hook in some way and leave the audience with something to ponder. Might be an idea, might be an image, but it's something for them to keep thinking about after you've finished your story. In graduate school, we're not used to showing much emotion at times, usually. We're taught to be objective scholars, not too personally invested in maybe what we're studying, or at least not showing that very much to our academic audiences. Of course, if you're teaching a subject, passion is critical. You can think of that if you're a TA, you can transfer some of that passion that you try to use in the classroom to a presentation that you might be giving to a general audience. So don't just appeal to their logic. Think about how to appeal to their emotion, and you can do that by just tapping into your own passion for the research that you're doing. So all this feeds into the competition that we've had here for over a decade, called the 3-minute thesis, and we've enlarged the umbrella of the competition to include a pre-3-minute thesis, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. This event is sponsored by the grad school. The deadline for preliminary video submissions is coming up October 21st, and we'll have information about what we expect in the video and how to format it and so forth on the website. The final competition is coming up November 6th, and it'll be in the esports theater. Next slide. So we do have the 2 tracks, as I mentioned. Some of you here in the Zoom room might be early in your research, and if you're early in your research, and by that I mean you don't have any concrete conclusions yet, you're just in the early stages of proposing, and you have a rough idea sort of where you're headed with it. You can participate in that track. If you are closer to being finished, if you have conclusions, you have results, you have interpretation of those results, and you're nearing the completion of the dissertation, let's say, or the master's thesis, then you can join the 3MT. But we try to keep those separate primarily because the winner of the 3-minute thesis goes on to the regional competition, and at that regional competition, there are only students there who are in the finished, the nearing, nearly finished stages of the research project. So we don't want to put someone who's in the 3MT track in the regional. So this, as you may know, this competition is part of a nationwide, in an international wide competition. There is a national research showcase, and there's an international, there's not an international competition, but there's an international website that you can find on the University of Queensland's site that keeps track of all the various competitions around the world. So you can go on their site and watch a few of the presentations. And that we encourage you to do that because that's the best way really to learn what a 3MT really is, what are some of the great characteristics of it, and how you can model your own presentation to that of a more international audience. So why is distilling and communicating research to non-specialist audiences important? Several reasons. First, it ignites excitement in the listener about your research, and so you're getting out your research beyond your committee and your department. One of the things about being in graduate school is that you are often confined within the walls of your own department and discipline. So this allows you to get it outside the walls. It engages that audience. That audience might have members of the media. Uh, there could be legislators there, or maybe you'll have an opportunity to speak with legislators sometime. Perhaps potential funders that are maybe outside the usual kind of disciplinary framework that you're used to. So all these are good reasons to try to hone the skill. It creates and empowers an informed citizenry, if you want to think of it in terms of, higher education informing the public good. That's one of its great benefits. And it potentially does improve support uh, of whether it's statewide or federal for higher education itself and your own research. You know that higher education is often under assault. And so the more we're able to talk about our research in effective, engaging ways that does not turn off the audience because it's too complex or it's going above their heads, the more you can hone that skill, the better. And then benefiting you in particular, I mean, and these are all already have been implied, but it develops your own communication repertoire of tools and presentation skills, uh, and especially for the non-specialist audiences. Uh, it also helps to highlight the innovative research that's going on in your lab, in your department, in your discipline, you yourself. It helps highlight your own research. It fosters creativity in constructing a story that people can very easily and quickly understand and appreciate, and helps you become creative in the way you use graphics. And also allows you to network with other students because, again, you're getting outside your own discipline and you're maybe meeting other students, other faculty are in the audience, staff members here at UK, administrators, and so forth. It does give you an edge in the job search or the postdoc search, and we've heard this time and again uh, with reports back from students, from alumni who have been in interviews and have gotten jobs and have told us about how critical uh, their 3MT experience has been. Sometimes they've even been told by a committee member that they watched their video on our website. And then next line on there, I think there's a provide money. Yes, of course, provides prize money. something that you can certainly use as a graduate student. And we give the prizes to the different levels in both tracks. So before we go on and talk a little bit about the slide crafting, it's important to think about the title, because thinking about the title can also get you focused in on sort of the method that you're going to use to craft the presentation itself. So you want to keep the title very short. We're not as used to keeping titles short as academics, but we have to try to do so for a public audience. Keep it under 8 words or so. Keep it fun if possible. Think of it as a newspaper headline or an article teaser. And here's an example from the University of Queensland. So here's an actual dissertation title: Structures and Features in Complex Visual Stimuli, Assisting Identification in Forensics. I think we as academics can appreciate that title, but when you try to translate to a general audience, it's not going to work. So a title like the one given there, Suspect Science and CSI, is the way to go. So we'll come back to this and mention it again, and you'll have access to this PowerPoint, but we do encourage you to watch 3MTs at UK and beyond. It's good to get a good sense of how they're done internationally. So we have a couple of links that you can follow there. And now I'm going to turn it on to Chad Gilpin, to give you a sense of best practices and provide some advice on creating that one slide that you'll need if you're going to enter the 3MT.
Hi,
Chad?
everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am getting over a cold, so I apologize for that. If I have to mute myself, I'm probably hacking, but I'm sorry. I have a prior life as a marketing and graphic design person, and so I just wanted to share a few tips and tricks for presenting your audience or presenting your research to a public audience, specifically the slide for the 3MT if you guys choose to participate in that, and we obviously highly recommend you do. I'm going to go through these really quick, and then we're going to do a kind of a Q&A session with Jovita Darazinwa. She was our winner of 2023's UK Grad Research Live and one of the finalists in the Council of Southern Graduate Schools regional competition. So she has just joined us today, and yes, Michael, I'm seeing your chat. We will share the links where we'll share the recording of this video as well as the PowerPoint with anybody who is interested. And Morris, maybe if you could copy and paste those links into the chat while I'm talking, that would be great. When we get to Jovita, we're going to actually watch her video, and then she'll be able to kind of unpack what went into making that. So I think it'll be really helpful for you guys. As far as the slides go, I think most graduate students are used to coming from like the poster, the poster presentation. And or one of two things, either the poster presentation or a PowerPoint where it like keeps you on track as you're talking. But if you've got a slide for a public presentation like this, those are not the best ways of doing it. A poster is going to just be an overwhelming amount of information for a layperson to try to comprehend. And really all it's going to do is distract them from what you're talking about. And then for the 3-minute thesis in particular, it's only 3 minutes. You've got it memorized. You're up there delivering it. You shouldn't need to be relying on that PowerPoint. So instead, we recommend an approach that's either illustrative of what you're going to be talking about in some way. And I think Jovita's got a pretty good illustrative slide. So we'll kind of look at that when we see her presentation, or just simply as a backdrop. When you create a slide for a 3MT presentation, you really need to think of it as your backdrop. If it's too distracting, if there's a lot going on, if there are big words that people are going to be trying to read over and over again and unpack, that's going to distract from what you're saying. They're going to miss what you're saying because they're trying to follow that. So think of the slide as a way to create a mood and to just illustrate a main setting or purpose for the story that you have to tell. In our colleague Ashley Sorrell usually joins us for many of these, and her anecdote for the title that Morris just talked about is like, it's like the bumper sticker version of your dissertation title, right? So you got to like smash it down tiny. Well, think of the slide the same way. You know, if it's got too many words on it, people are going to be reading it over and over again. They're going to be confused. They're going to be focused on the wrong thing. Think of it like the bumper sticker or like the billboard version. Just make it quick, make it punchy, get across a main point and move on. Try to use high quality images. We see a lot of folks that you know, just take something very small off the internet and blow it up, and you have, you know, a slide that looks pixelated and just not pleasing to the eye. When you place it into PowerPoint, don't stretch it. Don't try to make it fit. You can hold shift and drag that image and it'll keep the aspect ratio the same. And that'll make it much more pleasing to the eye. Try to refrain from using the cutesy fonts. They tend to be distracting or not as cute as you think they are when you're messing at your keyboard. So stick with something just really simple and plain, and limit yourself to that one font family, 2 at the most, but ideally 1 is enough. Establish visual hierarchy, especially if you're going to break that sort of 8, you know, word limit. If you just have to pack more in there, make sure that the main thing is punchy and obviously important, and the other stuff is subordinated in some way so that people know what should catch their eye and what to pay the most attention to. Put some thought into your color scheme. There's a lot of great resources out there that kind of help you with this for free. If you've never used the design assistant in PowerPoint or Canva, anything like that, you know, they can give you just lots of good tips and tricks on making sure that you choose colors that complement each other and that go well together. And I don't expect you guys to know anything about that, but just use the resources out there that can help you with it. And then finally, we get a lot of folks from, you know, the medical side or from the hard sciences that they have all of these people that have poured money into their research, and they always want to, you know, celebrate those folks. And that's great for, you know, a lot of the presentations you do, but for this, the public, that's not the main focus. You're telling a story here. So leave off your sponsors, leave off your logos, leave all of that off your slides. And then don't forget about negative space. If you pack that slide so full and get it so busy, it's going to be distracting. All right. Jovita, I would love to show your video to everybody right now. You can keep your camera off for the moment if you want, because I'm sure it's hard to watch yourself. But what this is it's a recording of Jovita that we did in studio after she won the 3MT competition here at UK, or is it? I think it was after that, before she went to the regionals. I could have that backwards, but it's a awesome professional version. I'm gonna try to play it right from PowerPoint here, but I don't know if it'll work. I may have to leave and jump on the browser here, but I've got it queued up. Please let me know right away if you guys can't hear it. And then after this, we're gonna get the chance to, I've got some questions I wanna talk to Jovita, ask her, and kind of guide the conversation. But I wanna encourage you guys to jump in at any point, ask any questions you have. You can do that via the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it, or just unmute your mic and holler out if you've got a question, okay? Okay, there's no sound yet.
Reawakening during my last visit to my home country, Nigeria. I was enjoying a break from cancer research.
Are you guys hearing this? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Okay, great.
Only to be confronted by a cancer reality. It all started with a text message where Kate, my fitness instructor, shared with us the daunting news of her luckily treatable breast cancer diagnosis. Her belief in her recovery was absolute, but my scientific mind grappled with the question, will it come back? This was because in my research work, I was well aware of the problem of reoccurrence. where people who have recovered today suddenly relapse in the future. For many battling cancer and many of us who love them, this question is a constant companion. As a researcher, I create alternative cancer cure. My focus is on the regulatory protein SHAPE2. Picture SHAPE2 as an orchestra conductor, controlling the activities of other proteins in the body. But when SHAPE2 malfunctions, it's like a conductor giving erratic signal, leading to chaos in the body. The current solution for the problem of SHAPE2 is putting this erratic protein to sleep. But research has shown that SHAPE2 does wake up from this sleep to cause more problem. So knowing this risk, would you rather put bad SHAPE2 to sleep or crush it completely? I choose to crush it so that good SHAPE2 can thrive. My research strategy is in 3 phases. 1, we design promising drug candidates for SHAPE2 using computer-based approaches. 2, I have made various versions of this drug in the labs using chemical. 3, testing of this drug candidates in different cancer models. We've completed it for different cancer cell types, soon in mice, and someday human. We have 2 amazing results among others. 1, SHAPE2 does disappear. Secondly, cancer cell die. The future of this research is to change the way we treat cancer reoccurrence. I am really eager to see Cape post-cancer. Now imagine our world post-cancer, where this question no longer exists. With my research, I fight for that world. Our drug candidates offer a 2-for-1 benefit, simultaneously promoting cancer recovery and at the same time preventing cancer reoccurrence. It's like buy one, get one free. And who doesn't like a good deal? As I continue alongside other scientists, discovering alternative cures for cancer, my confidence builds to answer my initial question. Will it come back? Will it come back for Kate? Of course not. I will make sure of it. You know why? So that the ones you love never, ever have to ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Jovita. That was great. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. And Jovita, are you with us?
Yes.
Hello.
Okay. Hi. Let me know if you can hear me, because I have to take this meeting from Disney World. So disclaimer, I am in Orlando for a conference and I'm at Disney World. So I didn't want to say no. I already scheduled this before they reached out to me. So it's just,
I can't believe you didn't tell us ahead of time. We're all so jealous now.
But it was fine. It's 30 minutes, so I could come in. It's fine. It's fine. And so that's a disclaimer up front.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
So start with this. I want you to sell people on participating in UK Grad Research Live, and I just want to ask, like, who have you shared that video with? Who's seen it, and what was the response?
Okay, I think I started with saying I'm at Orlando. They call it 3-minute rundown on this place. And I think I told people that I might probably be doing it. So when I started 3 minutes, thesis 3 minutes rundown, I don't think I knew exactly where I was going. I think there are 2 initial motivations. I like speaking and I want a proof of it in my scientific career or PhD career. Or secondly, I'm terrible at speaking and I want to get better at it. Or even though I know I'm good at speaking, I want to also become better. So I think those are like the 3 classes of motivation. But in any way, whether you're a pro or you're a beginner, I think the experience forces you to kind of refine how you communicate science. My scientific presentations are better because now I can communicate to my grandma. I like to other things about my research. So that's being able to communicate your research that way is important. So I think that's a good thing to have. There's also I like money. There was good money to it if nothing else motivates you. And I think it has also brought me people. Like at this conference, I participated in the 3MT and I won. So Dr. Morris, I was going to tell you that at some point, but that was like yesterday. So there are people who are like, oh, you really did well and all that, and they just they're like, it's become a door opener in a way. I'm not famous or anything, but I really like when people appreciate that. So you never know where the journey will take you. It might take you to wherever the next graduate conference is. It might take you anywhere, but you'll be better for it.
That's great. Tell us, what was your public experience or public speaking experience coming into doing Grad Research Live for the first time? Did you have any? Were you terrified? Were you excited? What did you feel about it?
I have always, this is me, and I know everybody's not like that. I think I've always enjoyed speaking, and but I'm also international. So when I moved here, I hadn't done any real speaking here. But I think I came into grad 3MC because at a group meeting in our lab, I did my presentation. And then I'm an experienced kind of with giving presentation, doing debates and all that. So I was experienced, and I can't take that away. And so I was a bit confident coming in. So someone recommended it, and I took the opportunity. And many years later, but I also want to say, even though I was experienced, first it was a different audience. It was a different environment. So I didn't get to 3MC once. This is the part I really want to say, because although all of you might get in, all of you won't be shortlisted in a way. For me, my journey to 3MC wasn't a one step. It's been many failures, very low lows, and many high successes as well. So I really wanted to share that with you. So in case you get in, you try and you don't get in, I had to do it twice. It was on my third time I got in, and then one directly. So and I think over the years, you also get better. So even if you experience, it was a test in my confidence. I'm like, I think I'm good enough, but I ain't getting in. But I think over time, it was just me refining. I was good. The skills were never requested. It's just how I projected my work and my research and how I got people to buy into it. So whether you experience like I am or you are a beginner, it might take you some time. And if it's taking you some time, that doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means there's something that can be better. And I don't think we ever get to 100%. It's a growth process.
Yeah, that's a great point. And with your multiple times of participating and then going on to the Council of Southern Graduate Schools, we got to see the evolution of your
Yes, I also got to see the
presentation.
evolution.
Yeah, and I think that had a lot to do with your success. I want to talk about that later, so we'll shelve that for now. But tell us, what was your process when you were starting out? How did you make the flip from, research heavy to like crafting that story out of your research?
I have to, I think for a while, what I was doing was, for my first 2 times trying to participate, I told my research story, like I just did it on my own. And I did it that way. It was a different story each time, but it didn't work. In 2023, I was like, I had joined Toastmasters, which is like a speaking thing. You don't have to join Toastmasters, but they were people from all walks of life. And this time I was like, I'm going to enter for this. So I'm going to practice this in front of you. I give people the grade sheet actually. So I give you the scoring rubric and I ask you to score me. My lab members all know my speech at this point. They know my speech, they know my gestures, and they make fun of me and they're like, this is missing, you didn't do this, you're not crazy. So it's funny, but I was that. So I think a lay audience, it might not be Toastmasters to you, it might be a roommate, it might even be, and the thing I realized that, people say your research people might not get it. All you have to do is to give them the rubric. Then you realize that even though they are your field, they'll be the one telling you that I think this word is too big, because now they understand that the rubric is that you can't say anything, any jargon. So grad students are very good cheerleaders and very good critics. So your friends can help you too, but you need to give them like the guide. This is what I'm looking out for, because if not, they will assume it's a regular presentation and some words can fly through. But giving it to people and letting them know what you're looking out for kind of gives you constructive feedback. I remember when the more you do that, and it's just the more you do that. And I think as well, I think you should type your speech out. And your speech will go through a lot of iterations. So it's easy if you have a Word document. I keep typing, What I used to do the first time was I write it, but the flow the flow is easier if I had typed it and I had studied it for a while and I keep removing and re-adding. So I say type it out. From my experience, I'm a fast speaker. I can get out about 450 words in 3 minutes, 150 in each minute. That's how it is, depending on how I pause and all that. So you have to find how much you can get out in 3 minutes and know your strategic places and all that. So I think that helps. But practice. I practiced. I remember I went to test for my glasses in South Carolina. let my speech to my optometrist. I'm a bit crazy, I'm a bit not normal, but just practice with regular people. They might be scientific people, but let them know. And if they say, wow, I like that, what they like, you keep it, and what they don't like, you can make it better. And sometimes when you receive feedback, it might not make sense to you. But what happens is that you let it sit, let it sleep on you. You might find better ways to change things around. But feedback really will help you get it. So I think the third time I got more feedback, especially from lay audience, and that kept up me refine tuning it. I also brought in story. I thought it wasn't my hook in was a cancer, something real, something they can relate to, a story, a statistic or whatever. And then my research came later. So I had them hooked in, and then before we got to the serious part, and I didn't also make the serious part too serious. Research, if you make it too technical, it's hard for people to listen to that for a long time, especially when you know there are other candidates. So I think the best thing is think about how you can leave a lasting impression. And people don't get lasting impression from big scientific words they can repeat. Lasting impression is how you made them feel. Lasting impression is a phrase they can relate to. Lasting impression is catchphrases they can repeat. There are people who are still asking me. My first speech was about John, my Uber driver. There are people who are asking me about John. This will come back. There are people who are asking me because they could pick something. So in your title as well, catchy in that way, so they can hold on to something. So that's one thing. I don't know if I answered the question, but just direct me back.
So you mentioned that you submitted videos a couple times before you got to present live. What was the biggest difference between your video presentation and when you had to go on that stage in front of everyone? What did you have to adjust? What did you have to change? What were you scared of? What were you unaware was going to be different? Tell us about that transition.
So it's like I had to, when I submitted a video, it was like, let me get there. And if they give me a chance, then I'm going to get my A game. Because now we are in it to win it. The first time I was probably in it to see if I get a chance, right? So now we're in it to win it. I'm like, now they've given me a chance, I'm winning this thing. So, that was it. This time around, it was all, I had taken a journey to get here. And I'm like, this one chance, I am messing it up. We're going all the way. And I was also a bit, I'm like, no, the money is bigger. And I wanted that. And I also wanted people's choice. It's money. So that's one thing it will. But standing in front of the crowd, it might be, depending on how you react, I get energy from the crowd, but that's my personality. Your personality might be, the crowd can be overwhelming, but finding one person in that crowd you can relate to. My folks were in the crowd. It was a party because I had people in the crowd who were rooting for me, and I was out to give a performance to just entertain them and show them what I got. So for you, that might be overwhelming, if that, but you could also find one person in the crowd that's kind of you can speak to, if that's what you need to calm you down, and that can help with your anxiety. So whether you are loud, confident, or you can, that's fine. But if you're someone who is cool and collected and calm, you can also make that shine through. Just find a way to sell yourself to them. So that's important. When you're trying, the first part is probably like a participation. The second part, a little bit of a performance. I don't say go crazy, but in a way that the people can enjoy you. In that way, they remember you. In that way, they think about you for people's choice if every other thing fails. In that way, just so they remember. That's important. Leaving that extra impression on your judge's mind is important.
That's great. Okay, I want to remind everybody, you are welcome to kick in and ask any questions you want. All right, I've got more questions for Jovita. I can keep going, but I'd love it if you guys ask some if you have any. All right, feel free to chat them or unmute yourself.
And then also it's fine if you send me an email and you want me to listen to your speech. It's not going to take more than 15-30 minutes on Zoom. I'll listen, and like you can practice on Zoom, and you can if you're in chemistry, around chemistry, I'm in chemistry, we can stick out. I can listen to it. I enjoy 3MT, and it's been a journey of 3 years for me. That's coming to an end right now. But you can talk to. I can listen to it, and I can give you feedback. Also, one thing I forgot, for me, who did that for me was when Dr. Patty was here. She's no longer with at UK, but she also was the first one. She was one thing I did differently the second time, because she gave me the confidence listening to my speech that, oh, you got it, and then we can make it better. So I went in confident. So if you need people to listen, people can also give you that affirmation that this is competitive enough, this is good enough, and then you can go. So if you need my help, email me. I'll be ready for us to meet at some point. So that's available to any of you if you want it.
That's awesome. That's very generous of you. Jovita, tell us about your slide. I remember it changing a lot from well, just from the time when you won until you went on to the regionals. I believe it changed a lot. Tell us about how did you latch on to that? One thing that I think was particularly successful about it is you used the conductor analogy. How did you find that? You went through a few different ones, right?
Yeah. So the thing is, there's a key concept that I had to pass across. The first thing I was targeting, SHTQ. For me, it was a regulator. So at some point, I thought about it as being a police officer or light or traffic light or things like that. But I wanted what do they call that thing? When you what do they? I can't remember. Like using something to represent something. I don't remember the exact way. So I wanted like something to represent it non-scientifically. So it was either going to be traffic lights for me, but the traffic light, I remember because I practiced with the grad school people a couple of times after my first win, and they could tell the traffic light idea, I couldn't sell it through in a way. I didn't know how to put it on my slide and demonstrate turning off and turning on without an animation. So I remember, I think I fed it to ChatGPT and I'm like, can you give me a whatever that word is called, a representative something. I can't remember what the exact word of what I can use to represent it. And I think it said orchestra. And that I used the tool. When it said orchestra, it became I had to go back to Canva, find an orchestra, then label this one as orchestra, this as what is conducting. And that kind of redeemed that part of the story. Now you understand the function of my protein. It was now easy to sell disappearance and putting to sleep. So it was an iterative process. The more like trying to find things that represented something over and over again and getting feedback and using AI and all that kind of gave me the ideas. It's not all my I'm not a genius. I just try to take what people give me and try to make it work for me.
Well, so I think you're hitting on of what I believe is a real key to some of your success here, which was, you've talked about presenting to your lab mates and your friends. You've talked about presenting to the grad school. Then you did the final competition, and then you went on to the regional competition, and we've seen so much growth. And I know that your willingness to just constantly practice and revise, practice and revise. I know that had a lot to do with
Yeah.
your success.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Was that agonizing? Was it fun? Did you feel yourself growing every time?
Yes, I was in it to win. So whatever will make me win. And I might not some of the comments, I don't remember a lot of the negative ones now. I remember a lot of the positive ones because I could just go in and change it. But however, I got a lot of feedback. I knew feedback could make it better because I was presenting to, it's the people who was the judges kind of. So these are the people you're going to. So their critique is what is going to make it. Like if you're running a restaurant and your customers don't like it, you're not going to say, this is what I want to do. You have to find a way to do what you like and sell it to your customers. So Graphic 3MC is more about how much you sell your science than your science. You might do the greatest science, and if you don't sell it well, people won't get it, right? So think about it as you building your sales pitch and getting better. And about that is really what people are willing to buy. So I began to tell them what they were willing to buy. I tapped into the emotions. The stories I use are real, but they are changed. I tapped into emotions. My ears were kept open whenever someone was beginning to share a story about the experience with what I was working on. I took the story and I found ways to put it in my story. Because now my research hasn't changed, but I delivered it 3 different times. And for the at least not more than 3 different times. But each time it's finding a new story I was passionate about and blending my research into it. So that was it. I could always tell them a story. But I know this can be hard because if you're working on something in physics that most people can't relate to, it's harder to find how to sell it to people. So in that way, I'm like, try to make your extraordinary research ordinary. If you were working on organic electrodes, and this time, does it relate to TB or does it relate to battery? If you're working on whatever, something, how can you sell it to me? It's important. People need to buy into your story. So like that's one thing. So in this way, selling them something. So if I was going to sell people something, I needed the people to give me feedback. It's like doing customer survey over and over again. And that's what I took it as. I might not like it, but I wanted to win. I like winning more than I hated this thing. So I didn't take it. So, and it was also nice that people were like, there was also very affirming feedback. So I think I always got, oh, this is great. This is absolutely amazing. But you can even make it better. Why don't you And most people were kind enough, I think, like to say, you think about it. If it doesn't work for you, don't take it. But I do think this will. And I took everything they said. And what happened most time is that once I take a feedback and put it in and made a change, someone appreciated the change. Like I said, oh, this, and then so that became something I was willing to do because I saw it getting better every time, getting better and better. So it started fueling itself.
Yeah. That was a really fun process for me to watch, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah,
Congrats.
it was nice to watch it. I enjoyed it for every time I went. And that's also, for every time I went, I felt I was getting better. And it also that became my soft deadline in ways. I'm going to, because every other thing was going up. I was doing orals, I was doing this. Knowing that I had to practice with someone meant I had to prepare. So I couldn't push it. So sometimes all I did was schedule week on week when I was preparing for the region, I'll schedule practice. And I know that because of this practice, I'll do a little bit work on it this week and then go. Because there's time now, the time will fly quickly when you're doing every other thing. But scheduling practices with people gave me the opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell us this. We're going to wrap it up so you can get back to Disney World. But tell us before you leave, what was your ultimate takeaway from the whole experience, from 3MT to the regionals, all of it?
You might fail a couple of times. I am very, very emotional about rejection. I am still not there yet, even if grad school. It was my first lesson. It was one of my biggest lessons in rejection in grad school. But the successes, and I have a friend who, like my roommate then, so like when I failed the first 2 times, I went to her and I was like, I'm gonna try a third time, but I'm not sure about trying. I'm not even like, I was actually like, if you don't try, you won't have peace of mind, so just do it anyway. So I did rejection wasn't final. And even when regionals, I didn't proceed through regionals to nationals. I did the first stage, got the first stage, scaled it really amazingly. The second stage didn't go as I planned. That was a hard nut to swallow. But now I've done the one at this conference and won. So like the rejection sucks at that moment, but sometimes if you hang in there long enough and you could learn something, you could get your win. And sometimes they also teach you something. So but it's a growth process. I am better. I know I'm good. I know I'm good because I have actually competed with it and seen people appreciate my work. But it's been a learning phase and a growth phase, and it's another way to challenge yourself outside your lab. And now I think one of the big things I'm good at scientific communication. I have proof for it. I'm not an average grad student can tell you that I can communicate to my science in a non-scientific way. That's something you don't get in your lab.
I love it.
That means that my scientific presentations are better because I'm now speaking not just to the science, but also to make it relatable and for people to enjoy it. So it will make you better. And it's a good challenge. It's a challenge that makes you better.
I love it. That's such an encouraging look at it. I love that takeaway. All right. I want to give everybody one last chance to ask any questions before we let Jovita go. Going once. Going twice.
And watch a lot of videos. There are 1,001 videos on YouTube. The videos help you understand what it's about. Seeing people's slide, watch videos in your field. They help you they are good ways to start.
Totally agree. Thank you for adding.
Sorry, one more thing. Tech issues. Tech issues. Tech issues can be a big problem or be a good thing because this recent 3MC for me was a tech problem. But because I didn't let that bother me, it became like a blessing. Like, oh, you didn't let that phase you. So I think last year, one girl in particular had the tech start blinking while she was presenting. Nobody can predict tech in a way. Sometimes it goes right and it goes wrong. So if that happens to you, I think you can sell it to your advantage and kind of be strong through it in that way. Like just keep going and roll with the punches in a way. Don't let that stop you in a way. It's destabilizing, but somehow find yourself there. So prepare and also prepare for the things you can't control in a way. Your slide didn't show, will you still be able to give your speech? If the worst happens, what will happen? So just that. How do you manage time? What if you're running out of time? What if you forget something? That's something people say. If you forget something, the audience doesn't know what you're going to say. So go with the next best thing. You don't know what I'm going to say. You didn't know if I was going to say A or B. So I will say the next thing that comes to mind and try to make it flow. So that's something. Know your speech, memorize your speech, but you will never remember all your speech. So know it enough to be able to use other things as well while you give the speech.
That's some excellent final advice. Thank you so much for joining us, Jovita. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Enjoy your vacation,
I'm
okay?
go- Yeah,
Kind of
back to my
vacation.
next ride. Dr. Morris, I'll catch up with you some other time. I've probably come to Gale.
It's good to see you, Jovita.
Thank you,
Good
Jovita.
to see you. Bye,
Thank you.
Chad. See you.
Bye.
Good luck, all of you, rooting for the next winner.
For all the rest of you, if you have any questions about the 3MT or Grad Research Live, I want to open it up to that. You can feel free to ask me and Dr. Grubbs. All right. Well, if there's no questions, then I thank you all for joining us.
No, please know that we're also available by email. So if you have afterthoughts, after questions, just send us an email. Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you, everyone.